For nearly 250 years, the American flag has flown over a nation, still becoming what it declared itself to be. It has marked battlefields and classrooms, front porches and city streets, military bases, and small town cemeteries. It has been raised in victory, lowered in mourning, folded with honor, and carried by generations who believed that liberty was worth sacrifice. But as America approaches its 250th anniversary, Flag Day asks more than where this symbol came from. It asks whether the next generation will know what generations before them saw in it. Not merely color and cloth, but memory, sacrifice, belonging, and duty. Before the Stars and Stripes became America's flag, the colonies flew a banner that still carried the mark of the empire they were resisting. It was called the Continental Colors, also known as the Grand Union Flag. Imagine it flying above the early Continental Army, 13 red and white stripes stretching across the field. But the upper left corner, the canton, the British Union flag, still remained. It was a symbol caught between two worlds. The stripes pointed to an emerging American Union, but the canton still pointed back to Britain. The colonies were united in resistance, but the final break had not yet fully taken shape. The flag reflected that tension. It belonged to a people who were no longer content to be treated as dependents, but who had not yet fully stepped into independence. The Continental Army flew this flag until 1777. But as the war deepened, the symbol no longer matched the cause. America was no longer merely asking to be heard as British subjects. It was becoming something new. On June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress passed the first Flag Resolution. Resolved that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. With those words, the British symbol was removed. In its place appeared 13 stars. Not a crown, not a kingdom, not an empire, a new constellation. The resolution did not specify how the stars should be arranged, so early American flags appeared with many different patterns. Some placed the stars in rows, others in circles, others in clusters, but the message was unmistakable. A new people had stepped onto the stage of history. And that is why June 14th, remembered as Flag Day, is the anniversary of the day America's cause received a national symbol. By the late 1800s, America was changing rapidly. Ships arrived in crowded harbors, carrying families who had left behind old countries, old languages, and old loyalties. Many came with little more than hope and necessity. Their children entered American classrooms, still learning the customs, sounds, and expectations of a new homeland. For many of them, the schoolhouse became the doorway into the American story. There beneath the flag, they learned something central to the American ideal. America was not supposed to be held together by one bloodline, one class, one accent, or one family name. Americans were bound together by a creed. America was a creedal nation. To become American was to be joined to a set of principles: liberty under law, government by consent, equal justice, rights given by God, and protected by government, and responsibility shared by its citizens. America was not a perfect nation, and sometimes failed to live up to that creed. But the creed still mattered because it gave the nation a standard by which it could be judged, corrected, and called higher. The flag became a visible reminder of that creed. And before liberty could be preserved by the next generation, it had to be explained to them. That is why the schoolhouse origins of Flag Day carry so much weight. Flag Day did not begin with a president. It did not begin with Congress. It began in a little one-room country schoolhouse in Waubeka, Wisconsin. The place was Stony Hill School. Today, it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places because of what happened there on June 14, 1885. Picture the room. A young teacher, only 19 years old, standing before his students. On his desk was a small American flag, not large, not ceremonial, not carried by soldiers or raised over a Capitol dome. It was a 10-inch, 38-star flag propped up in a glass bottle. That teacher was Bernard Cigrand. His students were mostly descendants of Luxembourger immigrants. And that day, Cigrand asked them to honor what he called the flag's birthday by reading essays they had written and discussing the flag's history and meaning. This was not a battlefield. It was not a congressional chamber. It was not a military parade. It was a room full of children being introduced to the meaning of a national symbol. The flag had been adopted by Congress in 1777, but its meaning had to be carried into the minds of children one generation at a time. From Waubeka, the ideal began to spread. In 1889, Professor George Bolch, principal of a free kindergarten in New York City, organized patriotic ceremonies for his students on June 14th. The observation drew the attention from the State Department of Education, which arranged for a Flag Day to be observed in New York public schools. A few years later, the movement reached Philadelphia. In 1893, the Society of Colonial Dames helped secure a resolution requiring the American flag to be displayed on public buildings throughout the city. That same year, Elizabeth Duane Gillespie, president of the Colonial Dames of Pennsylvania and a descendant of Benjamin Franklin, pushed for June 14th to be recognized as Flag Day in Philadelphia. The effort took time. Pennsylvania would not establish June 14th as a legal holiday until 1937, but the movement had already traveled from a one-room schoolhouse to city classrooms to flags raised over public buildings. Flag Day became a tradition not because Americans were forced to remember, but because teachers, children, and citizens believed the flag's meaning was worth passing on. The flag also became personal in ways no act of Congress could command. One of its most familiar names, Old Glory, comes from William Driver, a sea captain from Salem, Massachusetts. Driver went to sea as a boy, and by 21 was licensed to command his own ship. Before his first voyage as captain, his mother and the girls of Salem sewed him an American flag. When he raised it above his ship, he gave it the name Americans still remember, Old Glory. That flag crossed oceans with him. In 1831, 6 vessels left Salem for the South Pacific. Drivers was the only one to survive. He later carried 65 descendants of the Bounty survivors back to Pitcairn Island, believing God had spared his ship for that purpose. Years later, Driver settled in Nashville. On holidays, he displayed Old Glory outside his home, running a rope from an upstairs window to a tree across the street. Then came the Civil War. Driver remained loyal to the Union while living in a Confederate state. To protect the flag, he sewed it into a quilt. When Union troops entered Nashville, Driver brought Old Glory out again and gave it to the soldiers to raise over the Tennessee state capitol. That is why the name endured. It was not born in an official document. It came from a flag sewn by loved ones, carried through storms, hidden in war, and raised again when the danger had passed. As America approaches 250 years, Flag Day brings the anniversary down to a simple but urgent question. What will the next generation understand when they see the flag? There will be parades, fireworks, exhibits, speeches, and reenactments. Those celebrations have their place, but a nation can celebrate its founding and still fail to pass on its meaning. That is the danger of inherited liberty. It has become familiar before it is understood. It can be enjoyed before it's cherished. It can be assumed before it is defended. Flag Day pushes against that forgetfulness because its story leads us back to children, to classrooms, to teachers, essays, ceremonies, and small flags placed before young eyes. If America is a creedal nation, then each generation must be taught the creed: liberty under law, government by consent, equal justice, God-given rights, and responsibilities shared by its citizens. Not an empty ceremony, but a living inheritance. The question at 250 is not only what America will remember, it is what America will teach. On June 14, 1777, Congress gave America's cause a flag. But in the generations that followed, that flag gathered meaning in the life of the country. Teachers placed it before children in one-room schoolhouses. Immigrant families saw in it the promise of a new home. Sailors carried it across oceans. Soldiers defended it in war. And veterans honored it in silence. Parents and communities passed its meaning from one generation to the next. Now, as America approaches 250 years, that responsibility comes to us. May we not only display the flag, but understand its meaning. May we explain it to our children and grandchildren. May we not only celebrate liberty, but teach its cost. And may the next generation learn to see in those stars and stripes what earlier generations saw: a nation worth remembering, a liberty worth preserving, and a duty worth carrying forward. One flag, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this is part of the story of America's 250 years.
Like, follow, and subscribe to the National Character Association on YouTube. and watch our many historical videos about the causes of the American Revolution, the principles, the values behind the freedoms that we enjoy today.